Just horrible images coming out of Gaza once again. It's not comical at this point, but it is just like a horror show, even in the White House press pool. On Friday, we're going to be speaking to Marone Rappaport. He is the editor of the Last Call, the Local Call. But also a writer for 972 magazine, who, along those two publications and The Guardian, have done some major reporting and are reporting out these stories of Israel, essentially been on a 10-year campaign to intimidate and threaten ICC prosecutors, which is just, I mean, it is really shocking on many, many levels. And the idea that it's not getting as much attention as one would imagine is also sort of disturbing. We'll be talking to him on Friday. In the meantime, here is a CBS reporter.
Ed O'Keefe.
Former Fox News guy, right? Ed O'Keefe? Oh, that's Ed Henry. Okay, so this
I'd be shocked if a former Fox News person asked the question in the manner that Ed O'Keefe did.
Me too. But nevertheless, a CBS guy asking a question of John Kirby, and John Kirby gets offended, and it's unclear to me exactly why.
Has the president seen the images?
I don't know. I can't speak to what he has absolutely been. He's been kept apprised throughout the weekend on this.
So you're saying the tent encampment that was first struck is considered a densely populated area?
The whole area of Rafah, Ed, is densely populated. Now, there has been a million or so who have evacuated Rafah proper, but it's not like they're going all that far away. The whole area is densely populated.
So how does this not violate the red line that the president laid out?
As I said, we don't want to see a major ground operation. We haven't seen that at this point.
How many more charred corpses does he have to see before the president considers a change in policy?
We don't want to see a single more innocent life taken, and I kind of take a little offense at the question. No civilian casualties is the right number of civilian casualties, and this is not something that we've turned a blind eye to, nor has it been something we've ignored or neglected to raise with our Israeli counterparts, including, Ed, this weekend as a result of this particular strike. Now, they're investigating it, so let's let them investigate it and see what they come up with.
But the president doesn't have like a personal limit to this?
The president has been very clear and very direct about what our expectations are for Israeli operations in Rafah specifically, but in Gaza writ large. We won't support a major ground operation in Rafah, and we've, again, been very consistent on that. And the president said that should that occur, then it might make him have to make different decisions in terms of support. We haven't seen that happen at this point.
Why not have him come out and say that himself?
The president has been speaking to leaders throughout the region on a regular basis. He has been addressing you guys in various fora. You've got plenty of opportunities to talk to the president, including, I might add, in a press conference last week.
The last question seems less relevant to me. And supposedly they've come out with a more specific definition of what constitutes a major ground operation. It has to do with formations. And I mean, basically, it sounds like if they march on Rafah like the British would in their, in their formal formations and whatnot. I mean, I don't. Let's be clear. There's no red line.
Yeah, it's only a ground invasion if it's from a certain part of France.
I mean, there's just simply there's no red line.
It's bleeding everywhere.
There isn't. They don't. It is completely ad hoc and how much they think they can get away with, and it really is a function of, in terms of the administration, in terms of their support. 100 civilians have been killed in the past 2 or 3 days that we know of. And I think, according to the Israelis, maybe 2 Hamas fighters. Israel has announced that they intend to maintain this invasion through the end of the year.
Just got to see how the election's gonna work out for them, right?
Right, and
I mean, if Biden's pushing for Netanyahu to be ousted, and you heard some comments, I think, from or people who work in the White House saying it's hard to believe that a stable leader would authorize something like this, essentially trying to pin this on the one big bad guy, as opposed to this being, as we say, the natural conclusion of Israel's project there. I mean, that was a good question by Ed O'Keefe, and I want to give him credit. I also want that to be another just kind of marker as we begin to move along in time, as to how the press is maybe beginning to catch up on this point.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen like a question before the charred bodies, frankly, and which is, what exactly does those words mean? Major ground offensive.
And what does it matter?
Get them on the record of creating and hardening that line.
And what does it matter, right? If they're dropping 2,000-pound bombs on camps, like, I mean, I understand that the toll of the slaughter, if a major ground operation were to actually happen, which cannot happen under any circumstances, would be massive. But they're doing everything they can but that.
Yeah, of course that should be off limits, but also this death from above.
Yes, shooting fish in a barrel should be, and children in a barrel should be off limits.
I guess my point is, what constitutes, get them on the record for what constitutes a major ground operation? Because as soon as, like major ground operation, to me may mean something different than to you. I mean, or to them. I mean, that's the whole point is get them like on the record, on tape, saying what that is, and then then ask like, and this is irrespective of how many civilians die. So in other words, you could have anything that is, it really is just if it is defined fundamentally by what the attacker, in this instance, Israel, is doing, and not by the damage that is being done. I mean, that's because look, if would the attack on October 7th been would it have made any material difference if there had been half as many Hamas fighters than there were? Like, would Israel have made any distinction as to their response if there had been half as many fighters?
The answer,
the answer is, of course, no.
But the answer to your hypothetical from John Kirby would have been, I'm not going to get into the specifics of what a ground operation would constitute. That's within the scope of the Israeli military, although we're across these negotiations.
Well, how could you, then I would ask you, then how do you create a red line if there is no such thing as a major ground operation, if it's all a matter of interpretation?
The versions of these questions, I think, have been asked over and over again of these folks. It's about basically saying, this is the visceral image that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Charred bodies, a decapitated toddler being held up. What does it matter if it's a ground operation if they're dropping 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps and burning them alive? That's
my point, is that to define it based upon how Israel goes around killing the civilians, no one would ever say that October 7th would have been more or less of an issue had the number of Hamas fighters been different.
Right.
I mean, that's the point, is that like it's, had they used some other mechanism, Israel would never say, well, that wasn't as bad or whatnot, or it doesn't justify. I mean, that's the point. That's where by making it a function of some specific formation that Israel has to have is absurd, because what difference does it make if the way you measure a red line is how many civilians are going to die? There's no other calculus that should even be entertained. And they're allowed to get away with this, I think, in some part. I don't know all the questions that are being asked by the press, but they're being allowed to get away with it by defining it in some sort of like idiosyncratic way that Israel is approaching it, and that's really completely secondary.
And it's procedure.
To
It's
its
been
damage.
It's been aided by procedural wartime language in the press about this being an Israel-Hamas war. And if we're seeing a shift on that from someone like CBS News, I'm gonna be grateful for it. But,
Yeah.
I would say a third option is Iraqi journalist Muntadhar al-Zaidi throwing a shoe at George Bush. That's a third option.
That's a third. Yeah, these red lines run.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.